system within the body. There was a gigantic
What?
New York Times package about it a couple of weeks ago. Oh yeah, no,
I missed that.
Sincerely, everybody go find. There's a New York Times article. It's about the interstitium, interstitium, and what it describes is the interrelation and intercommunication of our organs within a kind of a circulatory system that had never been identified before, right? So you've got the lymphatic system, you've got the circulatory system with blood, and now you've got this means by which our skin, through our skin, right, or through other unrelated organs, the body talks to itself, talks to each other, right?
So the understory of the body.
The understory of the body, exactly.
There
it's a mycelium network within our human bodies. And the way that they traced it was by looking at the travel of tattoo ink from parts of the body at microscopic levels, from parts of the body to other parts of the body, right? Hip replacement episode number 59. Kyle, I was thinking about 59 and how close it is to 60, and then because maybe I didn't get enough sleep this weekend at the volleyball tournament. I'll tell you about that later. Let me tell you, a volleyball tournament at a casino is really
at a casino.
Mohegan Sun, the pride of Connecticut. In any case, it's not an especially great place to get sleep, but anyway, I'm a little
on a holiday weekend, by the way, too.
I mean, right. Well, listen, and thank you for suffering back and forth with traffic as well. But I was thinking about 60, and then my associative brain went immediately to When I'm 64 by the Beatles. And then that made me think of the music that I grew up on and the albums that I grew up on. And When I'm 64, of course, is from Sgt. Pepper's, but the record that one of the three records that I really remember growing up on, my father's records, were the Beatles' Abbey Road, the Who's Next, and the Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. And so this is obviously indicative of my age as a Gen Xer born in 1975, but also of the sort of popular music of the moment. And it made me think, I was like, I wonder what records were like those childhood classics for Kyle.
Oh, very interesting question.
And for millennials generally.
Yeah, it's funny. I will give my answer really quickly, and then I also want to hear from our guest too, because I know she's in the same era as well. But so that is really funny. Like on the parental side, my parents had very interesting tastes that were sort of like almost asynchronous to era, because like my dad listened to it. He was a boomer. He did listen to Beach Boys. He loved the Beach Boys. No specific record, but he loved the Beach Boys. I think he had some sort of like dream, an LA beach dream, even though he was from Queens, New York. And a lot of Irish jigs. But then on the other side, you had my mother, who was listening to a lot of like merengue and like a lot of Puerto Rican artists. However, at the intersection of them was, granted, more my mom, less my dad, was MTV was on, just playing music videos, or even VH1. So there was a lot of like Whitney Houston, a lot of Madonna. Like I remember like the Just Like a Prayer video very vividly, watching that and being like, what's happening? Interracial couple? There's a Jesus statue coming to life and he's black. Being in a very Catholic household, I was like, what's happening here? If I'd even gotten shut down in the house, it was like, we can't watch this. But like that was a very formative music moment in my household, whether that was from my parents or not. I remember being like, Just Like a Prayer, like I could like close my eyes and see that whole video. Life is a mystery. Anyway,
well, given the amount of time we've been talking about Madonna recently, it does also call to mind our common themes. Carmen, so Kyle, our guest today is Carmen, who you're going to have to introduce as per usual. So please, go ahead.
Yes, we're joined by Carmen Vicente, who's a social strategist who runs the newsletter Scroll Sick, We've been in conversation for a few weeks and months, and Carmen's work I follow on TikTok. Very amazing sort of like thinker on these times, especially
Oh,
as
nice.
it
Okay.
relates to digital culture. I think Carmen is amazing. Welcome, Carmen. But also, what was the music that you were listening to growing up, or that your parents
Yeah, I
were
was
like?
gonna
What
say
was the?
no
Yeah,
TikToks about these times. Just
Yeah.
please explain the music
right.
that you grew up on. Go.
Yes,
Okay, well, thanks for having me. Lovely to be here. It's
of
funny
course.
because I feel like Kyle, maybe you and I are like quite cosmically aligned. Okay, we just established we're basically the same age. But
Yes.
so my mom, I think my mom's music past is sort of complicated because I do remember her listening to a lot of Gordon Lightfoot, and that was like a
Hmm.
thing when I was
Okay.
a kid. But also, she lost her sister as like an adult, and she said all the music, like it was so tied to this like time in her life that she like had to, she said she had to like kind of cut ties with a lot of music and then like
Wow.
rediscover modern music because the music was too like it would just make her think too much of a time in her life.
Sure.
And then my
Yeah.
dad is Spanish. And so he was like full flamenco all the way. And I remember
Yes.
like having these conversations with my dad where like he'd be dropping me off at soccer and I'd be like, can you turn the flamenco down? Like, I don't want to get out of the car with like the flamenco like blaring.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It was like even a thing where we could like hear my dad driving down the street when he got home from work because like you could hear the flamenco just like
Oh my God.
That's
blaring.
amazing.
Yeah, they had very eclectic, like different, not so much eclectic,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
their musical tastes were not like unified. Those are like maybe Gordon Lightfoot and flamenco were
That
the
is
things I remember.
really
It's
quickly. Was he also
yeah.
listening to Gypsy Kings?
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay, so was my mom. So was my mom. So like truly, that was like that Gypsy Kings household for sure. Bambaleo,
Yeah.
I could sing all of that. I
Bambaleo.
will
Oh
not
my
sing it, but like
God.
yes, yes.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, so one of the reasons that this came up for me was, you know, in this kind of intergenerational conversation that we have every week, driving back from the volleyball tournament, Harper, my daughter, she's sitting in the passenger seat of the car listening to music on her headphones, and when my music stopped, funny story about that in a second. When my music stopped, I could hear her music, and she was listening to "I Want to Sex You Up" by Color Me Bad, which
Wow, that's a deep cut for
well,
wow.
but this is the thing. I
I
think
mean,
that song, if I'm not mistaken, I think that song came out when I was a junior in high school, just like she is now, and it's very weird to me
Mhm.
that I don't think like I love those records that I grew up on, and I certainly listened to them throughout the course of my life, but I do not think my dad would have caught me replaying
Mhm.
Abbey Road
right,
at 17. You know what I
right,
mean? And it's sort of remarkable to think, okay, she is listening to the exact same song as I used to like wait for on the video jukebox channel on the free to air because we didn't have cable type situation.
But I think that's what's happening. Like I think
yeah,
the
sure.
cycles
Yeah,
are
well, this is
contracting.
kind of this is my point. Yeah,
Yeah.
talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit. What do you? Where does it?
Yeah.
grab
I mean,
you,
I think
Carmen?
like I've like made content specifically about this, about like how you have like a trend life cycle, right? Where like, you know, a trend is born, then it starts to rise, and then you hit kind of a saturation point, and then you start to, you know, have this not slow, but you know, a kind of sudden plummeting death. And then every once in a while there's a rebirth down the road. But I think
Right,
that like point A to point B on that trend life cycle is getting like shorter and shorter and shorter. And my theory is that I think it's just like algorithms that are like supercharging the speed. You know, it's like you can just like burn through so much more culture because it used to take you a while to like get to things. There was like word of mouth, and somebody would have to play a show, and then the show would have to be picked up by a media news
right,
outlet. And you know, it's like now that doesn't take time. So
right.
We've talked about speed running culture a lot on the podcast, and it does seem like there's that algorithmic speed running. The thing that I always look for though is the pendulum swinging back in the other direction, and a signal that people are young people in particular are starting to insist on listening to music or consuming media or something like that is only hyper contemporary, because that would
Mm-hmm.
be the appropriate reaction to this big flat now, you know, endless
Right,
timeline sort of thing. And I haven't seen it. For every Xavier So Based song that she sang, or that she streams a Color Me Bad or something like that. And it's sort of weird because I want there to be kids who, the way that I discovered punk rock, discovered whatever it is, and go for some period of time, I am only listening to this. Everything else sucks. I'm listening only to this. It feels like that's the teenage response, and I haven't seen it, and it's interesting to me that we haven't gotten to that place yet.
Well,
Unless I've missed it, maybe, which is possible.
I don't know if you've missed it. I feel like the sort of like the tides have shifted, and Carmen, I'm curious to get your take on this, but I do think that sort of like very contemporary music culture is very much alive and well, and I do think that like someone like Harper is interacting with it. I do think a lot of it's two things. Number one, you do have more access to the whole catalog, and I do think you're able to scratch the itch of I'm going to listen to Color Me Bad because my dad listened to it, or whatever else because of
that's not why she's
dad.
listening to it. She's
Sure.
100% not listening to me. I want to sex you up because I listen to it. I'll tell you that much right
True,
now.
fair. But on the flip side of that is I do think, and these go hand in hand, is that I think that at least with TikTok and probably Instagram to some extent now, and YouTube as well, is like music production and new music is so bountiful. You can listen to so much, and you are listening to so much. And on top of that, the algorithm is also giving you a lot of the, everything from, running up that hill because of Stranger Things, all the way to whatever other trending song is popping up. So like you are getting a lot of the new stuff, but you're also like going deeper at the same time. So like I do think it's hard for me to articulate, but it's sort of like, if I'm making this up, but like let's say you like whatever contemporary like synth pop band there is, you might ostensibly go deeper down that well because of TikTok, and then discover like everything from Duran Duran to Kraftwerk. You know what I mean? So like, and that is something I don't think you had as much of access to when we were growing up, when I was growing up, because like that you had to do a little bit more work to get that, and it's good that you don't have to do that, but also like maybe it's a bit less striking and meaningful.
I think my system for discovery in those ways was, on the one hand, traditional media, magazines and zines and that sort of thing, right? You open an issue of Maximum Rock and Roll or of Spin or whatever, and if you knew the artist on one page, you likely would be interested in the artist on the next page, kind of thing. But there was also there was a head shop in Syracuse called Down Under Leather that you could go in and you could look at all of the T-shirts. And you could kind of go, Jimi Hendrix is next to the Doors, is next to Led Zeppelin, is next to the Rolling Stones, is next to Joy Division, is next to Erasure, is next to Thompson Twins, is next to, and you're like, all of a sudden there's this weird continuum of things that have nothing to do with one another, but that you sort of understood, like, oh, those are things I should investigate. What I don't know though is if there is, whether anybody's putting in that level of effort that's involved in that, and that's where I'm curious. What I do
think
wonder,
they are, but I don't think that it's in the same way, and I don't think that they're thinking about it that way, because I think that, again, because of the flatness, I think they're always sort of interacting with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I just don't think it's like Addison Rae and like fucking Grace Jones are in the same continuum. They're both making pop music. Why does the time matter? I mean, that's a very crude comparison.
Dream,
but you know what I mean?
Dream blunt circle right there.
I mean,
Carmen, I'm curious, or blunt rotation. Sorry, I used the wrong term. Carmen, one of the stories that you sort of nominated for us to talk to is the idea of the feed is fake, and I want to tie that together with another experience I had this weekend where a song came on my Discover Weekly or one of my recommended playlists or whatever from Cloyd, Kloyd, and I was like, oh, this is a cool song, and I clicked on Cloyd, and I realized that Cloyd had also been recommended to me in another song. This song was more like up tempo, housey techno kind of thing. The other one was more down tempo-y instrumental, not exactly trip hop, but sort of in that vein. And so I opened the profile, and Cloyd is apparently this woman, Kay Lloyd or Catherine Lloyd or something like that from England. And the bio, as much as it seemed real, didn't totally convince me. I wasn't totally sure that Cloyd is a real artist. And the whole idea of this feed is the feed is fake thing begs the question, how do we, as we go down the rabbit hole, figure that out? So what I mean, was that the thrust of the article that struck you?
Yeah, and I think like the feed is fake was like kind of spun off. There was one original article by Eliza McLam, and I want to give her credit because she's awesome, and I think she's the one who basically broke it on Substack. I think her article was called "Fake Friends" or "Fake Followers," something like "Fake Fans." It was called "Fake Fans."
Fake fans, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, it's about clipping farms, clipping agencies that have people making these kinds of clips. You know, it's like I've worked in social media for over a decade, and I like maniacally investigate algorithms and what's going on. So it's like on some level, like, yeah, I know the feed is fake, but it felt good to read like her talking about this and like kind of investigating the agencies that are actually doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, I guess I feel like I've kind of been gaslighting myself. Like, of course this shit is fake. And you know, I remember reading in that newsletter, Shit You Should Care About, they were saying like, you know, I've never seen an episode of on Off Campus, but I know what happens. And I've never seen an episode of Love Island, but I know what happens. And I was thinking the same thing, like, you know, or Love is Blind, you know, it's like, I never watched an episode of Love is Blind. I'm not saying that to be like morally or like somehow like artistically superior to someone. I just don't have the attention span for it. But it's so funny that I could be like, oh yeah, I know who the villain is in Love is Blind. And I know who the winner is and all of that kind of stuff, because I've just seen all these clips. And I think that it's kind of like, it feels very Humpty Dumpty to me. Like I am actually somebody who would say like, I love the internet. I think the internet's great.
Which part of Humpty Dumpty? Like what? It's like, is he sitting on the wall, or has he fallen off? Are the king's horses showing up? Where are we in the process?
I think that, you know, I suppose Humpty could still be sitting on the wall if we were all getting fake clips, but we didn't know they were fake. But now that we know they're fake, it's like, oh Christ. Like, it's just like, you can't even, like, I saw so much stuff about this new hockey drama Off Campus. And I probably won't watch that either. But I would, you know, and it'll be like people being like, not this scene, sending me, or like, I can't believe Dean, like, of course Dean would do that. And then I look at the accounts and I go, oh shit, they only have 16 videos. This is one of those things. They paid for it, you know? And I think like you could argue that all virality is kind of engineered, you know, I could see someone playing devil's advocate and saying like, well, what do you think virality is in the first place? Yeah. And it's like, I get it, but I still think that like,
go ahead.
Yeah. I still think that virality, like quote unquote, back in the day, it represented like some collective sort of movement or something, and now it doesn't. Absolutely.
I mean, you know, it was called street marketing at the time. It just didn't go viral in the same way, but it functioned in the same, or it didn't go viral in the same way, but it served the same purpose, and it was engineered in the same means, which is why the whole feed is fake thing, I just sort of roll my eyes and laugh at it, because I'm like, what did you guys think was going on? Well, but I also understand 100%. Why it's different and why it's more disconcerting.
Yeah. Eliza also brings up the fact that like engineered virality can spur real virality, which is like, then that like melts my brain, right?
Just
where
like
I'm
like,
yeah, where I'm like,
I'm not sorry about that one.
Like that starts to make me feel like I'm like having like stonery like tangents where I'm like, oh my God, like what is anything real, you know? But of course engineered virality leads to real virality. Like that's how you put the pieces into place.
I was going to say is that like, you know, it's definitely, this is something I've not thought about. So I think this is, you're right on, Carmen, is like, you know, being gaslit by all of media and on top of that with AI and things like this, like what is real, what's not real. What is sort of like something being performed and given to you versus what is actually organic. Like I do think, to your point, Ben, as well, as like that has always been the feeling. Even if we think about somebody like, you know, Rebecca Black, who I think is amazing now, say what you will about her whole history, is like, you know, I don't think that was something where the feed was fake, quote unquote, but like that was definitely, I'm paying money for a producer to pump out whatever this thing so my daughter can be a pop star. It sort of backfired in a different way and became viral in a different way. But like that was all a team effort to make that happen. That didn't just happen me in front of my camera. That was a production. And like, I think
Sure.
that that has become increasingly slippery. And like, it also is even more slippery because so much of culture is being dog walked by the algorithm, because I think a lot of people, businesses, whatever, are very insecure about doing anything culturally. It does. I think there was somebody you mentioned, Ben, just a moment ago. I'm forgetting. Oh, Cloyd, whatever you say that name. But there is
Cloyd,
an
yeah.
artist. There's another artist who I've been seeing a lot, and I feel like you guys have always seen them too. Is this young woman named Eli, who's her whole thing is like very much this sort of send up to Y2K Disney TV aesthetics. And like, she's a fine pop star. I don't think she's very good, but like, she had a pop crave tweet. She had an interview with Pitchfork. She did Zane Lowe a few months ago. All this stuff, and like, she's nobody really. And like, it's one of those things that's sort of like, you have sort of the fetus fake, whatever. You have sort of like the old school thing that's happening. And on top of this, you have like an industry plant. You have a whatever, which is also then like, there are real things happening, of course. And then AI coming from the bottom. So it's like, you have all of these things happening where it's just like, you further have to take a lot of these fees with a grain of salt, and also again, like, sort of turn to your real people in your community in real life, but also online, to help validate these experiences. And there was something I think you mentioned, Carmen, about to somebody being like, I like this, and it's like, and that sort of force virality creating real virality is the thing that happens as well, because it's just like, oh yeah, like this Eli person, they're a really good example, because I do see a lot of, say, girls in gay Twitter being like, she's amazing, because like, I think that they're sort of being like, oh, this is like an aesthetic package that I enjoy, and the song is fine. Whereas other people now are being like, this feels so forced, this doesn't seem real, this is an industry plant, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that both things can be true. I don't know what the truth is, but either way, I do think this is definitely a time where you see enough people saying, I love this, to the point of the off-campus stuff. You're probably going to say, let me try this, and or I just blindly love this too. And here we are.
Okay, so can I just let me jump back in though, because I had never heard of Eli, and I just did a little search on Eli, and I pulled up a video of Eli doing "Girl of Your Dreams" live on the Zane Lowe show. And let me just tell you, when I was 15, I would have taken one look at this and been like, "Oh,
Poser.
hell no,
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely not, unacceptable." And and this is the thing that to me is strange about this current moment that we're in, is that stuff that should not have passed the smell test previously.
Total, yes.
And again, I haven't listened to it yet. Maybe I'll be proven
it's totally
wrong.
Better.
But just at first glance, stuff that shouldn't pass the smell test somehow makes it through, and it seems weird to me that there isn't this allergic reaction from people. Like we all have read Pattern Recognition, I'm sure. Like, where is the Case Pollard like nausea that you feel in your bones from seeing bad brand, bad content, bad artist, bad whatever it is? Like, that's a teenage feeling. Why isn't it happening? But I mean, talk to the teenagers, obviously, but I'm confused by that.
I think though that it's like, I hate talking about this word because it just means so many things to so many people, but it's like, okay, if we're going to talk about taste, like,
I thought you were going to say authenticity, and I was going to ban you.
Well, that's
we can talk about taste. We can talk about taste.
I mean, you can ban me for talking about taste too, but it's like, okay, let's say taste is kind of like the sum of all of your cultural inputs or something, right? And then ultimately there's like a discernment piece, and you're trying to figure out like, okay, of all these things, like, what do I actually like? It's like, I don't know, now all your cultural inputs have been paid for by a record label or something. And so maybe your ability to discern what is good and what is bad has just been totally poisoned,
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah, but that's always been the case. I mean, those things have always been determined by somebody else. Sorry, Kyle, go, please continue.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, you're both right, obviously, but I think the other thing too that makes, again, something like an Eli or whoever the person of the moment is different, is that I do think another very teenage thing that a lot of us still have, and I think people naturally have in general, and I think social media exacerbates this, is the desire to be the first person to discover something. And like that's sort of like that Christopher
Sure.
Columbus sense of like, I found this person, my feed gave it to me as a gift, and I am the first one to talk about it. Whether or not that is true doesn't matter. But like that is a whole other economy that the clipping economy, preys upon, is that idea that like you will find that novelty and feel special by it and then share it because you are the first person to talk about this. You are the first person to discover the new Lady Gaga before everybody else did. That's like literally the basis of what the modern music industry or even entertainment industry is doing. And like that is, I get that, because like I think we all feel that way, especially us who work in media. Like I think that there is that like, oh, I found something before it sort of happened, but like I do think, again, not to invoke taste, is like you need some more discernment to actually recognize, yes, this is worth it, or like, no, this is a fucking poser.
Yeah, totally. I also think that like my fear, and I don't know, maybe I'll just call it right now. I bet you that all of the same sorts of like behemoths that tried to claim taste and tried to like optimize taste, I really think that the next word that they're going to go hard on and make a campaign for is discernment. I feel like it's just like by
already happening,
August of this year, it's like, they're going to be like, no, we taste, we were just joking about taste. What we actually mean is discernment, the ability to tell between two things what is good and what is not.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny the way I guess I see it from a slightly different thing in which, as a matter of fact, I was at a talk last week where a pretty famous creative director said, "Oh, well, we're not worried about juniors being replaced by AI because juniors at our shop are encouraged to use AI so that they are exposed to a million things, so that that's how they develop taste, because taste is just the accumulation of stuff."
My God.
I mean, he didn't say it quite that way, but that was the thrust of it. And I'm just like, that is totally wrong. Right. Absolutely wrong. But and then weirdly, he walked it back and made taste into actually discernment of all of that stuff that you get. So to me, it's like, well, one, it was just shocking to watch the sales job that this guy was doing. But beyond that, we there was literally a member of the audience who reached out, was just like, "Hey, whatever cult you're starting, I'm going to join. By the way, I feel like I feel like, having taste is my unique value. And so, could I fit into your ecosystem?" And he's like, "Yeah, totally." And I was like, "Wait a second, you just said 1 second ago that all anybody has to do is just be exposed to whatever." I got throwing darts at
the wall.
Well, I mean, more to the point, it's like you're saying anything that can gain traction because it gains traction, which is kind of what this whole discussion is about. My point simply being, Carmen, that discernment has been activated and is now, let's find some other thing. We're going to France. Let's call it savoir faire. Let's call it, je ne sais quoi. Yeah, exactly. We just need fucking Greg Brockman to tweet that he's got je ne sais quoi, and then that'll be over too.
I'm telling you, Greg Brockman's going to tweet about discernment. I give it 6 weeks. In the next 6 weeks, he will tweet about discernment.
The thing that I don't love ad hominem attacks, but one of the things that I read recently that I thought was funny was like, why doesn't Greg Brockman have hair? Like, a guy like that, he can afford the best possible hair replacement therapy. Why doesn't he have hair? And I'm just like, well, I guess that's where we're at now. We're just straight up hating on people. This is really good. I like it. I don't really like it. I'm just saying.
If a sick burn wins, then a sick burn wins. And that will be like
True.
Hey, that is like, if you can, it's the same thing of like, Elon Musk being like, comedy is legal now, and then like fucking bombing at anything he tries to do that's vaguely comedic. So like, hey.
I could also see somebody in tech being like, hair is just one more thing I have to optimize. Better not to have it.
Oh, no, look, I agree. I mean, I've seen the episode of Seinfeld where the guy comes from the future. Like, this is clearly one of the solutions. Well, okay, so speaking of optimizing, Carmen, one of the other or a troika of articles that you sent through that you wanted to get into was around reaching the end of the horseshoe on personal optimization and just now reverting back to the stuff that sort of makes us happy, right? My resolution in 2026 is to start drinking again at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, aside from the fact that we are a pro drinking pod on this side, within reason, of course, everything in moderation. What was it that has been grabbing you about that little corner of the discourse?
It's just like I think I'm always this pattern, like I'm always doing pattern recognition where I'm like, okay, if enough media outlets are talking about it and enough people on social are talking about it, like I think the big clip that's been going viral is the one of Stephen Bartlett saying he drank a couple glasses of wine and it ruined 3 days of his life. And everyone's just like, losing it about like, well, if 2 glasses of wine takes you down, like I fear you're a bit fragile for this world sort of thing.
Right.
But I just, I read that GQ piece, the one where he said, he was basically this like former kind of like biohacking kind of writer dude who did a full year with no booze. And then he was like, guess what? I'm going to go back to drinking because I don't feel like it was like this emancipation from, the shackles of alcohol or something like that. And of course, like this is a sensitive topic. If you have, problems with alcohol addiction, of course, I'm not saying any one thing, but it's like I recognize that talking about alcohol can be very charged for some people who have histories of addictions and people versus people who don't. Obviously this writer from GQ was not someone who was saying I'm an alcoholic and I'm going to start drinking again. He was saying I'm not an alcoholic, and I think that my life, the fabric of my life, like changed in ways that I hadn't really anticipated. And he was sort of saying like there was a little less like social lubricant and like there was a little bit less spontaneity. And, there's always going to be a counter argument for why like you don't need alcohol to have those things. And like, I'm a person who just from my own choices decided not to drink. I haven't drank since like March of 2025. And I used to work in the beer industry for a decade. I worked actually over a decade. I worked in the beer industry. So like, I would go to like beer festivals regularly where people would be like sitting in a chair vomiting on themselves, so drunk, there was rampant alcoholism in the industry that I came from. And I guess I just sort of feel like I read that piece about like wanting to drink again. And I was like, yeah, I need to as well. I think I need to just have a drink at my friend's birthday party. And I think my life would be better for it. And then I saw a video from Ashwin. I forgot his last name, but he posted a ton on Instagram and TikTok. And he was sort of saying the same thing. He's like, sometimes like a regrettable light hangover at age 39 is like a reflective moment, And
100%.
I think that there's just this like, I think we've slipped a little too far into over optimizing the body. And it just reads kind of like almost, I don't know what to call it, like a reverse eating disorder or something, where it's like you cannot let yourself slip up and you have to treat this body as a temple. And it's like, but the temple also has to be able to know when to like, I don't know, kind of participate.
Well, more to the point, the temple's doors, the temple's doors need to open at some point and welcome people into it for it to form its function, period. Right. And
the temple withstanding a storm makes it stronger.
Yes. And like, I bet you we're like not far off from like, I'm not an Aura ring wearer. I'm not really into that. No hate on Aura. I just don't really want a thing ticking my metrics like every minute of the day. Like my work KPIs are sufficient for that. But I wouldn't be surprised if in like 3 years, everyone has like a sperm score and an egg score. And then people will be like writing on their dating profiles, like, oh, I don't want to date a guy who has a sperm score under 93.
Well, it's, that's really interesting actually, because we had that conversation last week or 2 weeks ago with Campbell, my series producer Campbell, my 19-year-old who has just finished his sophomore year in college. And he was talking about dating apps and how difficult it is for guys who are short on dating apps, right? And he thankfully sprouted up in his senior year of high school and is like approaching 6'2", so he's got no trouble on that side of things. However, it makes you think, but he's got a bunch of short friends, right? And I'm 5'9" of grazingly average height, and so it's sort of like, what do his friends and his compatriots do to counter the short allegations, right? Because they can't beat them, right? Except in tragic ways. Maybe it's sperm score. I'm 5'7", but I've got my
98
sperm count off the charts. Like, this is how we're going to counter the global childbirth decline. generally is like,
I'm
we're going to let the short kings back in the conversation.
And you know what impedes your sperm health score is alcohol. So don't drink any.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Brian Johnson 100% is going to be like go to market with that any day now, given all the like crazy things he's
Well,
doing with his girlfriend.
We've had those sperm races already, right?
Yeah,
So, sorry,
that's the other thing.
I do
it.
think,
No.
I think there is some health tech companies that were betting on sperm races.
Right.
I think this
Totally.
exists. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure.
Well, no, it definitely did. There was a kid who was a USC student, I think, as a matter of fact, like one of these precocious money raising VC sophomores or whatever, you know, those guys. But no, he staged a sperm race this is probably almost a year ago now. But it is I think where you're going, Carmen, is actually probably right. It's like at a certain point, as the pendulum swings the other direction, what are the alternate metrics that we can use to, you know, positively quantify ourselves where we have otherwise a, you know, overwhelming liability?
I mean, I think that 100% is going to happen and come true. We also know it's going to be used for all the nefarious things tech is already doing of sort of reinforcing racism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We ableism, all these sorts of things. I'm curious, and I think to the point of the whole article that you shared, Carmen, is like, you know, well, what will the flip side and or counterbalancing of that be? Like, if say puritanical wellness, body maxing, whatever culture is saying don't drink, and there's another side saying, well, like actually some drinking is really good because of XYZ thing, and I'm indulging safely, or whatever you want to call it, maybe not indulging, but like I'm enjoying or dabbling in whatever alcohol, whatever. So like if you do have these sort of like, you know, sperm raising, sperm optimizing, whatever thing, what is the flip side of that? And I don't know what that is. It could just be sort of like as simple as just not reckless, but just like, I'm not going to, I'm making this up, like wear a condom. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to let nature do whatever, which sounds so fucking ironic given that the wellness stuff is so couched in being as natural as possible. But I would argue that the optimizing, the overanalyzing it is not natural.
Yeah. I think there's something too about like when you're like over optimizing, like say you're like counting all your macros and you're making sure your sleep score is perfect and you're like, you know, your bedroom temperature is the right temperature. It's like a lot of what it is that you're exercising no discretion. You know, you're not really saying what is good for me, what do I like, you're not
what
really
do I
like
enjoy?
in tune, maybe. Yeah. It's like you're not really thinking about how to. It's just like you're eliminating a lot of decisions from your life.
That's interesting, right? To the horseshoe being rounded again or completed again in the taste discussion, because you go, okay, so if optimization allows me to remove discretion, aka discernment, then the optimizing culture is inherently taste. It's inherently antithetical to taste.
I think,
absolutely.
To me, like, and
it's
I'm
robotic.
not like going to be like, if you are working out, you have no taste. Like I you know, somebody's obviously can always take your words out of context, but it's like, I do think that that's part of the appeal is that you don't have to make a decision. You don't have to to exercise discretion. You just eat the right amount of chicken breasts in a day. And that's the right thing to do, you know? Whereas like somebody else might be like, yeah, actually I decided to have a glass of rosé with lunch and like put that in your pipe and smoke it, you know?
But it's like, it's so exactly
smokable
like,
rosé. That's a product idea.
Exactly.
Oh, I think protein cigarettes would rip.
Oh my God. Don't take that back because it will happen. You should go and copyright that right now. Or protein Zin, actually. Protein Zin.
It's my big idea.
Protzin.
Protzin.
Yeah, we're prototyping products here on Hip Replacement, guys. Let's go. God. We're forming an LLC right after this. Kyle, what were you saying?
Well, I was just gonna say is that all this is so anti-creative. We know that. It's like I do like making my own food and like making a supper and like riffing and like fucking it up and making it better. I do enjoy the non-optimization of like knowing or not knowing where I'm going with it. Not knowing like when I'm going out tonight. Yeah, I do want to be up by 7 a.m. to be able to write or do whatever, but also I know I'm going to see XYZ people And like if they / we want to go out after dinner, I'm gonna do it because I like having fun. But I also think that again is like all of this is a wider symptom of, and we know this intellectually, is like a sort of lack of truly creatives, and like creative culture is sort of like dying, it feels, by the algorithm or by tech or whatever. And like that also goes hand in hand with like free thinking and wanting to be different and like truly different, not just like I'm wearing a different aesthetic, but just sort of like being critical and free thinking, whatever that might mean. There's a lot of people who are doing that, but like we definitely know the dominant culture now is really against them. They don't want you to be creative. They don't want you to free think. They don't want you to whatever. And like that is what gets so disappointing about that. And then it obviously trickles down into the body, is that like you wanting to reshape your body. I don't want to be fat. I want to have muscles. I want to have this. I want to do that, is like a response to the sort of insecurity is the wrong word, but that sort of like inability to roll with whatever your body and the world is giving you. And like, not to say that like, well, my health, to all of the points that we said, or like I don't like this, I don't feel comfortable, like that's fine. But like I do think everybody being like, well, no one can be fat or whatever, is like, then that is a real inability to sort of like to roll with things and to sort of accept life in the body and the whole of humanity for what it is, which is being creative and adapting.
Yeah, and also like you know, a lot of body optimization is about like planning a day, and the day never changes. You know, what you do at 7 a.m.
which
is the same thing you do at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's like that is not a resilient life. You know, that is not a life that can allow for bumps in the road.
Well, okay, so
that's Black Mirror.
because well, or it's one end of the K, and the other end of the K is
for sure.
The enhanced game and the hedonist handbook, and you know, like the no rules rule book. And you know, because the enhanced games I think are going on right now in Las Vegas. I haven't been checking the scoreboard to figure out whether the guy with the one really big arm won the discus or anything. But
I did hear one person who did not have, I did not fact check this, so please feel free to practice anybody who's listening or anybody here, is like there was one race where like one person who was like, I'm not doing any enhancements, they won.
Really?
And I was like,
I've heard some similar headlines. So
I've not fact checked it, but like that would be so rich and so amazing. And just like, what are you going to do about that, enhanced games? What are you going to do?
No, I heard that today, that basically the unenhanced are winning. But I didn't take it to mean they were competing against each other. It's like I thought they were kind of comparing their times or something.
Oh, interesting. The one that I saw was someone who was in an actual race, I think, but I could have misread it as well. Either way, the fact that we both saw that says something.
It's a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, but who paid for those clips that we saw, Kyle?
Oh,
true.
Okay, well, they were held on. It sounds like they were held on Sunday yesterday, right? So this is
all
not
of the
very
games.
Exciting.
Oh, I thought it was like a whole week. Boring. I thought it was going to be much bigger.
Yeah, it's not very. I mean, it's not very American to hold games on Memorial Day.
No,
so I'm kind of not surprised.
It's not very exciting to hold a games over one day. That's not a games. That's a game.
Yeah, it's not.
Anyway, it's intriguing because it the thing that the enhanced game starts to bring to life is a storyline from the comic book Judge Dredd, which I don't know if either of you are familiar with at all, but I mean it was also made into a film or a couple of films. Starring Sylvester Stallone and then later somebody else. But anyway, Judge Dredd is this apocalyptic world called Mega City. It appeared as a serialized strip in 2000 AD, the graphic, like the comic graphic novel magazine starting in England in the 70s. And in it, they have these enhanced games where somebody can be up to 20% or 25% cyborg. And so, like, the guy with the discus truly does have a metal arm or something like that, right?
Of course.
The level of the whole premise of that world is that it is utterly and totally dystopian. And the interesting thing about the enhanced games is that they are so not dystopian. It's so prosaic, right? It's like the guy, I mean, maybe he's doing blood doping or whatever, but generally speaking, he doesn't have a tail or like to swim like a dolphin. Why are we stopping short? Like what is keeping
more
us
tails?
From...
It's not imaginative and not creative enough. Like that's the whole thing, is that like I wouldn't be surprised if like all of this, you would think with the enhanced games, it's no rules, just right, do whatever the fuck you want. But like I would bet, I haven't looked into this, it's 100% probably men's and women's sports. It's not like anybody, doesn't matter who you or what you are, like just do it. Like it's not, I'm sure it is.
Right.
It's, you know, if I'm recalling correctly, it is sort of backed by like Donald Trump Jr. or one of the Trump sons. So like, it's unsurprising that this is like subscribing by the same norms and metrics of exactly the systems that we were talking about. It's not truly countercultural or questioning what sports could be. It is applying the same metric to the sort of RFK Jr. wellness thing, which so like then it's like, well then we're not fucking playing ball. Like you're talking about balling and you're not.
Yeah. It is kind of amazing because on the one hand, it's like, you know that there are people out there on the outer limits. You know, we don't have to look any further than body modification culture to know that there's somebody out there on the limits who has a tail and is ready to swim. Maybe isn't fast, but you know, nonetheless. But by the same token, it also makes you wonder, like, do we as humans just have a sort of an innate, you know, stopping point where we just think, okay, this is at a cellular level, this is too crazy, we can't push it too far, and it's almost like that's where the body the optimized health thing starts to hit a wall too, because you just start to go, hang on a second, this is just not right. Like health span was described to me once as by somebody who works with the Arnault family and has spent a great deal of time investigating health with a lot of resources.
Wow.
That it was sort of like, it turns out that our health span is essentially like a series of buttons that we click or don't click in our genome, right? At a certain point, you wonder if the body knows well enough to just think, all right, you got to balance the number of buttons you click or don't click. And so all unclicked is no good and all clicked is no good. And so somewhere we have to find an equilibrium. Carmen, I can't tell whether you're thinking or rolling your eyes, but
no, I'm not rolling my eyes. I was more just thinking, like when you said at some point, does the body know? And I was thinking, like, I feel like we're talking about subcultures where like the body doesn't know. That's like the whole thing. I mean, that's what we were just sort of saying, is that like there's a complete like removal from thinking about how does my body feel, and it's more like you're looking at your Aura Ring stats being like, oh, I had a good sleep because my phone told me I had a good sleep, you know? And so it's like, I feel like it's almost like a divorcing from the body knowing anything. It's the like your metrics and your you know, kind of output.
Well, but I mean, if you take this whole big story that was reported about the interstitium, this newly discovered or newly identified circulatory system within the body, there was a gigantic New York Times package about it a couple of weeks ago. Oh yeah, no,
I missed that.
Sincerely, everybody go find. There's a New York Times article. It's about the interstitium, interstitium, and what it describes is the interrelation and intercommunication of our organs within a kind of a circulatory system that had never been identified before, right? So you've got the lymphatic system, you've got the circulatory system with blood, and now you've got this means by which our skin, through our skin, right, or through other unrelated organs, the body talks to itself, talks to each other, right?
So the understory of the body.
The understory of the body, exactly.
There
it's a mycelium network within our human bodies. And the way that they traced it was by looking at the travel of tattoo ink from parts of the body at microscopic levels, from parts of the body to other parts of the body, right? And so it turns out Eastern medicine, all of these acupressure pressure points end up being loci for the travel of tattoo ink at a microparticle level, which suggests that there's this correlation. My point in that long spiel is A, read the article, B, that there might be a set of signals that we're receiving that we're not aware of, right? And that's a regulatory sort of mechanism.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I'm
It's a good
ready
TED
to
Talk.
receive signals.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm
seriously.
at the point in my life where I'm very like I think if anyone was gonna convert me to a cult, like now would be the time where I'd be like, they're most likely to get me. So
Your third eye is
Yeah,
open.
I
You're
mean-
ready to, yeah.
yes, yeah. My interstitial system is ready to receive
Yes.
signals.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I guess ultimately, right, and this is why we have this conversation every week, it's like the idea that discoveries as monumental as that. The last time the last time a bodily system was discovered was in 1630. Like, it's been 400 years. No, clearly Eastern medicine has known about this without naming it, without verifying
Right.
it for thousands of years, right? But nonetheless, it gets verified today in spite of the fact that we have all of this medical technology, in spite of the fact that we have all of this, thousands of years of medical history, so on and so forth. And it just, part of it is just sort of teasing out the possibilities and going, I wonder what happens if, I tattooed me on my eyebrow and it ended up in my foot. Like, why?
We'll find out. No, you gotta get an eyebrow tattoo.
I'm not getting any tattoos. That was actually how the conversation started, is that I have no tattoos. And
Me neither.
I'm not, it's funny, Carmen, I'm not at a point where I've reached, at this point in my life, I'm ready to receive a tattoo. Like you're ready to join a cult.
Yeah. I've thought about getting tattoos now that I'm like no longer like a firmly in the young person category. But I'm always like, I could spend that on something else. I got bills to pay. I feel like you get them when you're young because
I will say this, my mother, I don't know if she was anti-tattoo or not, but I remember that I got a tattoo when I was like 17. I got an underage tattoo when I was on a trip to Los Angeles in high school, and I came back and like had on a shirt that was a little bit too see-through and like was sitting in front of her at something, and she was like, "Did you get a tattoo?" And I was like, "I did." It was a whole thing. I had to I had to buy makeup because my dad was like, "You're never gonna get a job." And I'm like, "The tattoo is on my back. It's gonna be okay." But I still had to buy makeup. I had to do all this shit. All this to say is like my mom probably like around 2017. I don't remember when exactly, which was more than a decade after that tattoo story. She now has like both of her wrists are covered in tattoos. She's gotten a bunch of tattoos. She's gotten tattoos
Wow.
with my sister. I don't know if she's gotten one with my brother, but like all of her tattoos are like in honor of her children or grandkids or whatever. So like you never know what will happen. I do think to the point of receiving is like having that sort of like openness, like that's a good trait to have. Because like my mom, I never would have guessed that. And she gets thankfully more and more progressive and open-minded the older she gets, and that's been very exciting. We could all hope to be that way. So you might get a tattoo when you don't expect it.
Well, that
Totally.
is it. I mean, if there's been a theme for this conversation generally, it's like let's maintain our openness, because
Absolutely.
we're headed to a potentially dark place if we don't.
The next time you see me, I'm gonna have an eyebrow tattoo, maybe something that goes all the way around my eye.
What if the tattoo was your eyebrow? Have you thought about that? Like, what about
that's real?
No,
what if from afar it looks like your eyebrows, but up close it says something? It says like rock and roll.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Like that. That'd be awesome.
Or
It's
maybe like I'll turn it into a unibrow with a message. Yeah.
Yes.
I love Oasis.
Oh my God.
All right. Well, listen, Carmen, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Where can the kids find you out in the world?
Lots of places. Yeah. So I have a Substack called Scrollsick. I'm on Instagram and TikTok as Carm Scrolls, and I'm a top voice on LinkedIn. So that's just Carmen Vicente on LinkedIn. Yeah.
All right.
Love
so
LinkedIn.
Carmen Vicente, Reed Hastings, and I don't know who else is big on LinkedIn.
Amanda
Lots
Bynes.
of CEOs, just me and the CEOs.
Amanda Bynes. Okay, right.
Amanda Bynes,
that's the Carmen, Amanda, and
and the Staples baddie just joined too.
Oh, love that.
On LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, we love a LinkedIn troll. All right. Well, Carmen, such a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Kyle, you and I will be back next week. Will you be back off the island, or will you be?
Yes, I will be back in
still
normal regular programming.
Holiday.
No, I'm back.
Wait, say that.
I'm back
Okay,
in
good.
regular
All right, well,
programming then.
Good. All right. So Kyle will be back. I'll be back. And in the meantime, everybody, please go find Carmen on socials and on Substack. And we will see you again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.